Hey fam, it's Lex. Alright, today's card talk is how do you know when it's time to let something go? Look, we've all been there. In a relationship, in a job, in a friendship, just in some kind of situation where it's time to decide whether or not it even makes sense to be in that thing that you're in. When it gets to the point where it is exhausting, that's a clue. The truth is that our experience is subjective, right? So in some ways, you're never going to know 100% for sure. That concept of there being some empirical data point that's going to let you know when it's time is false. You can let that go right now. It's going to be subjective, and that's how life is. You come up against hard choices, and there'll always be room for the what if, okay? But there are some clues. When something becomes exhausting, when it becomes a drain on your energy and a drain on your drive, it's time to let that thing go. Now, there is some benefit to being challenged, okay? But only you're going to know the difference between that. When you're being challenged and when you're being blocked. When you're being challenged, you're still growing. You're still able to have that forward momentum, right? There's something in that's asking you to keep pushing forward. There's a growth, there's a forward momentum there. When you're being blocked, you're being zapped, you're being exhausted, and you keep bumping up against something that is painful. It's frustrating, it's painful, it's exhausting. It's all of those things that put a tax on you. When you get into that place, you need to check in with yourself. Am I being challenged or am I being blocked? And if you're being blocked, it's probably time to let that thing go. Here's the other aspect of letting things go. We run through what we think is the cost of letting something go. So say I'm in a relationship and I feel like maybe it's time to let it go. I run through the cost. Well, I'm going to be alone. Well, I may not be financially viable on my own. Well, it's not always bad, right? And do I want to let go of the good times just so I can get rid of the bad times? And we go through all that list of things that we think are the pros and the cons. And for most of us, we sacrifice our own happiness, we sacrifice our own needs, we sacrifice our own joy because we think the cost is too high. Here's the truth. The cost of staying is something we don't calculate. It is more expensive to stay in something that takes away from your life force, that takes away from your energy, that takes away from your growth and your development by allowing you to experience joy and love and laughter and playfulness and excitement in your life. That is so much more expensive than the temporary happiness. This is what it comes down to. It is short-term pain for long-term gain. Short-term pain, long-term gain. Anytime you leave something, it sucks. That's the truth. You're comfortable in that thing you're in. Sometimes just like the pain of something seems more comfortable than the freedom that you don't understand. The pain of staying is more comfortable than the possibilities that exist on the other side of leaving, okay? There's no shame in that. Everybody feels that way. It's more comfortable to be with a devil you know than a devil you don't, right? But on the other side of getting over that, look, let's call it what it is. That's bullshit. That's an excuse, okay? On the other side of that excuse is a whole other kind of freedom where you don't have to carry that pain with you, and then where you can make choices about what kind of joy you want to experience. When it's time to let that thing go, there's something inside of you that's saying, this is hard, this is painful for me to stay here. And you have to get over that fear. You have to move through that fear in order to make that decision to let that thing go. Nobody wants to let go of situations that are comfortable because they're comfortable. But when you get into the discomfort, that is where you grow. Okay, so check in with yourself. Is this relationship blocking me or challenging me? Is this job blocking me or challenging me? Sometimes you float along, but for the most part, it's usually one of those things, right? And when you get to that point where you have reached a place where you're being blocked, you're being exhausted, you're being drained, you're being frustrated, you're withdrawing, right? That can also look like sacrifice, like, oh, I'm not going to worry about my happiness or what makes me feel good. I'm going to withdraw so that I'm just giving the minimum possible effort to stay comfortable. That is a major red flag. It's time to go, baby. You can't stay there. It's time to go. You got to make those decisions, man. You got to put yourself first. You cannot sacrifice your happiness just to stay comfortable. You got to know when it's time to go. All right?